Morning, everybody. Wow, I guess I should say afternoon. It is lunchtime here at the courthouse, and holy smokes, what a morning it has been here at Lori Vallow Daybell's Arizona trial. A lot happening. I would say we've had a few fireworks this morning. First of all, started with Lori Vallow continuing her cross-examination of the Chandler police officer Coons, and her. Well, first of all, the day began with her telling the judge that she believes that the testimony that he gave should be stricken, that her constitutional rights have been violated, and that the judge should not allow his testimony in. The judge denied her request. She then began cross-examining him about the trajectory of the bullets, about whether he was aware that Charles and Alex were friends, that Alex was among his top 5 friends. Of course, the prosecution objected repeatedly, and there was a lot of back and forth about the floor, why the floor wasn't tested for projectiles. He said the projectile was in the floor. Why the Alex's hands and Lori's hands and Tylee's hands weren't checked for gunpowder. He said, because we know who the shooter was. The shooter was Alex Cox, and we didn't need to test. So there was a lot of back and forth between Lori and Detective Coons. She definitely came with her argumentative side, you could say, and then the prosecutor followed up with a lot of questions of her own. And then the next witness we heard from was Nancy Jo Hancock. This is a woman who went on a date with Charles the night before Charles was shot. And this was something where they met on an LDS dating site. She said Charles was very charming, very kind, talked a lot about his family, talked a lot about Lori, and how Lori was all of these weird religious beliefs that Nancy Jo had never heard of. She's a mother of 5 herself, active in the church, and they went back and forth. She said Charles texted a lot. They had a lot of conversations that went for quite some time and on the phone, and then they decided that they were going to meet. And so Charles was flying into Arizona from Houston to pick up JJ. He was so excited. She said he was like a kid on Christmas morning, so excited to pick up JJ and take JJ to school, and then he was going to do something with Adam Cox, and then they were going to meet up the next day for lunch, a late lunch or something like that. Well, then Charles completely ghosted her after July 11th, never called her. The dinner went great. They stayed at the restaurant really late. In fact, their conversation continued after the restaurant closed out in the parking lot by her truck. They chatted for a long time. She said it was just a really great date. And they had discussed the life insurance issue, that he had $1 million life insurance policy, and he told her that he had not told Lori this. And she said, well, you might want to tell Lori. The interesting thing is she said that 2 or 3 times that she was so taken with how kind and compassionate Charles was about his wife, about his current situation. And he had said that they were going through a divorce, and she just couldn't, she would have thought that he would have talked about her a lot worse. Well, then it was Lori's time to cross-examine Nancy Jo. And she was fired up. She said, why you date married men? She goes, I didn't know he was going through a divorce. And she goes, it's not like we were sleeping together at the time. And she said, is it true that you texted Charles that he was a good kisser? And she said it could have been. She said, so you went on a date and you talked about me all night long? And Nancy Jo's response was, don't flatter yourself, no. But she said they did talk about her. She asked if they talked about the life insurance, and she said, are you aware that I had a $2 million life insurance policy on me and Charles only had a $1 million? And she said she didn't know about Lori's life insurance. And she went back and forth with the witness about a bunch of these questions about, a bunch of different stuff. And then before lunch, something interesting happened. Lori said, tell me what he told you, what he talked about. Basically, tell me what he talked about. The prosecution objected. The jury was sent out. They went on a sidebar with the headphones. The technology wasn't working. So then the judge, outside of the presence of the jury, said, are you sure you really want to ask that question? Because you're about to open a door here. Because anything that, if Nancy Jo goes on and on about everything they talked about, Now it's entered into the trial, and now the jury hears it. The judge was kind of warning her, like, are you sure? And she said, yes, I'm sure. And the judge said, all right, well, this shouldn't take very long. We'll have the jurors come back in. And Lori said, no, this is going to take some time, Your Honor. Should we break for lunch? And that's what happened. There's the cliffhanger. So after lunch, Nancy Jo, the woman that went on a date with Charles the night before he died, will be back on the stand. Lori will continue to cross-examine him. The prosecution will then ask follow-up questions, and then we will see. So all in all, definitely a lot of action this morning. If you missed any, we have the whole hearing on YouTube. You can go watch it. And also I'm doing my updates. But that's what's happening here at the trial as we are on to witness number 6 out of 21. And we will continue to be here. Beautiful afternoon in Phoenix, nice weather, and the sun is shining, and it's a nice day to be here at court with a lot of, as I mentioned, interesting testimony. So thanks for joining in today for this lunchtime. I'll see you tonight, Courtroom Insider. We have a lot to talk about. Think about your questions if you want to send any in. We'll be live at 8 o'clock Mountain to go through everything that happened today, and then you can pick it up there. All right, have a good one. We'll see you.